Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is yet another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for a little LEC Summer split preview action, maybe sort of the EU LCS as League Classic rolls around. We're going vintage on a lot of this, but I think it's still actually the LEC we're looking at. And let me tell you, this felt like a proper offseason, going from spring to summer, because 7 out of the 10 teams in between splits made some type of roster move, which when you compare to all the other major regions is about 400% more changes coming in.
Now, the question, though, about those changes are they going to be impactful changes for these teams within the LEC? And I think there's a little bit more to discuss about that for some of them. And that gets to the heart of the conversation about when you look at the boards for the LEC, you got to be looking at them, and you definitely can tell there's a difference between kind of that top, I'll say 6, maybe 4, if depending on how critical you want to be about that top level, and everybody else in the LEC.
And yes, there is still, I think, very clearly a top 3, probably extend that to top 4, but that doesn't mean there isn't an impact amongst those top squads. First and foremost, G2 Esports coming in top of the table. Yes, EWC results behind. You're still insane to not be putting G2 in the number 1 spot, but it's the same starting 5. The main change, of course, Dylan Falco, after 4.5 years, far and away the longest tenured head coach, it might even be globally right now, is benched. Perks comes in as head coach. We know he's been working with the team for the majority of 2026. This was obviously a bit of a surprise. You eliminate T1 at MSI, and then quickly after that, you get ousted. I know there was the whole Lion Gaming ending, but this could definitely have an impact one way or another. We know Perks and Caps are boys, going back to their time playing together, but this is the first head coaching opportunity Perks has ever had, and for a team that has such high expectations, people are going to be expecting a lot.
Oh, baby, this is going to be cinema either way for G2 Esports and Perks in this role. Got to be must watch in this situation, because you laid it out 4+ years pretty much with Dylan Falco and the success that this G2 organization has been able to have. And a large part of that you can look at, and yes, of course, is the individual players, their accomplishments and everything else. But driving a lot of that and helping support that was the coaching staff, was those decisions and preparations that they went through. It's going to be different with Perks. There's no question about that. I think that was part of the initial thing of him joining that roster, is you kind of felt like, okay, yeah, you can bring in another voice, another addition, whatever. But if it's not the same, pulling on the same string as the head coach, it's going to become a different sound. And I think that's what we've seen from this G2, is that they had all that noise behind the scenes, and they've decided after the T1 series Lion situation at MSI to pull the trigger on this as the direction moving forward for this team.
And he was already the coach for the EWC event for G2. Obviously, he's a very vocal, outspoken, demonstrative guy, kind of the opposite of somebody like Dylan Falco, who has had so much success with G2. But yes, when the standard is winning the championship, it's obviously a little bit unfair to make your head coaching debut and have those expectations. And just because you were a star player, have a ton of game knowledge, doesn't necessarily translate to being a great coach. But going to be super interesting. I'm sure we'll have some fun interviews with Perks in there as the head coach for G2. And you look at the other squads, 2 of the 3 that did not actually make any moves are Carmine Corp and Movistar Koi. Koi was obviously devastated. You could see any of the behind-the-scenes videos after they got swiftly destroyed by KC to close out their spring playoff run. And then Carmine Corp obviously got to finals at EWC, but were embarrassed at MSI. So a bit of a mixed bag internationally for them.
Which I guess is kind of the label for the LEC stepping into this summer split. Just talking about G2 toppling down T1 only to falter to Lion Gaming, and then maybe get themselves again, like Carmine Corp, a little bit off the mat at EWC, a little bit a life back into it to talk about them heading towards this summer split. But make no mistake, this is a summer split that Carmine Corp needs to come out on top. This is simply not going to be good enough to be a number 2 and number 3 seed for the LEC. the standard, the expectation, the demand is going to be getting on top of G2, toppling them, topping the region, and being that number one representative that has shown that they've sharpened themselves up since the last time you saw them on the international stage and will be ready to not disappoint this time around.
Yeah, and kind of disappointment is a bit of the theme for both KC and MCOY, and you can't be disappointed unless there are expectations to perform well. But this is now back-to-back splits versus and spring for MCOY, falling up short against Carmine Corp in these playoffs and very clearly being that third seed or second fiddle to G2 and KC. And this is, at times, especially in the regular season, we've kind of said this is it. This level that KOI is at right now is elite, and they're ready to take a title in the LEC. Playoffs roll around and it never comes to fruition. So we need that performance in summer for MCOY.
I think this is maybe the best situation you could be in for the LEC, is just the hunger, the desire, the requirements that are there for these two squads that are nipping at the heels, that are these top tier contenders like a G2 within the region. They've had these disappointments, that the expectation, the demand from their fan bases and everybody else is going to be hitting that next level, getting to that, that next stride that you haven't hit so far. And for a squad like Movistar KOI, for a superstar like our boy, Mr. Jojo Pyun in the mid lane, I think that expectation, that demand this time around is not going to be just, okay, don't falter in these playoff series or these situations really against Carmine Corp and whatever. Can you close it out? Can you close the whole deal out and be that champion, that king of the LEC that you have come to the region for? I think that would be the thing that is going to be that expectation, that demand, that pull through and goal for a squad like Movistar KOI.
And again, hitting the ground running with these three all matching up on a road show. It's the regular season is single round robin. So this is going to be your only regular season matchup against these other top three squads. So talk about momentum to maybe carry for the entire 6-week regular season, probably dropping in opening weekend.
It's a huge deal. And there's a lot of times where we've talked about the LEC and their schedule, and especially at the very beginnings of their split schedules, and going, okay, pump the brakes. We didn't really get to see G2, we didn't get to see so-and-so of a team in their challenge, or someone's gone on a crazy run, but it's only against the bottom, whatever. That's not really the situation or environment that you're going to be in this split around, as you laid out. Single round robin, getting these marquee, big time, crucial matches that will determine the top order and situation towards playoffs right off the bat here. Absolutely going to be something to keep an eye on as we start this LEC Summer split.
And right outside that top three, rounding out the fourth squad in this roadshow in Paris, is Team Vitality. We know the story, 8-1, first in the regular season, 0-6, disappointing bow out to playoffs, and they feel like the solution was to bring in Fiesta as the starting mid laner over Mr. Humanoid. We could debate, okay, team environment, we know Carzzy and Humanoid were boys, maybe that takes a hit, maybe there'll be a little less lackadaisical for fun on the Rift with Fiesta coming in, who of course debuted in the challenger scene in the LCK 6 years ago. We last saw him on BNK FearX Youth. He's been on Nongshim. He won a split in the TCL. So he's new to the LEC, but Fiesta's been around for a while.
Yeah, so I think this is one of those ones where, in certain situations, you're coming in maybe with some more excitement, some more hype and whatever. Not necessarily the same for someone like Fiesta stepping on in, but absolutely you laid out an experienced, accomplished guy around various circuits type of thing, stepping on into this role for Vitality here. And the change from Humanoid is going to be that significant thing as far as how things are on and off the Rift for this Vitality squad. And I think it doesn't really take an extreme analytical eye to see that there were some peaks for that Vitality squad as you laid out the start to the split and everything else. And sometimes when everything was going right off the Rift and on the Rift, it felt like this is the usurper to everything at that top end of the LEC. But that didn't last long enough, and especially when the schedule lost its consistency for Vitality, they lost. Their consistency to perform on Summoner's Rift was one of the biggest factors for that team. So that's going to be something that, whether that is going to be a factor within the scheduling of this split, I don't think so for Vitality, but that is on top of that big change in the mid lane that's going on with Fiesta.
And they're now, let's be honest, going to have to reprove themselves, because we were talking about them, Knock goes MVP. They had all these guys on the all-pro teams. They were in that conversation with the top three, but with how playoffs ended and a roster move, I think they're kind of lumped back more towards that middle tier of the LEC, and they're going to have to reprove themselves. And again, they're part of this first road show, so if they go 2-1 or something against the top three, then okay, we're taking you seriously again. But if, I don't know, they start 0-3 or something, you're going, yep, it's just the playoffs continued. They're not quite at that next level, and they got to be worried because a squad like GiantX, who I'm actually high on with some of the changes coming in. I know on paper, Flackett coming in to replace Noah, you're going, well, individually, that sounds like a downgrade. But you think about team atmosphere, environment for Flackett. He's been a consummate teammate. People have loved playing with him. And his personality alongside somebody like Jackie's might be lightning in a bottle for this squad.
Yeah, and it's always a very big risk, though, when you are making one of these type of moves where you are identifying that the actual maybe skill set, result, product under most situations is not the same type of level. You're expecting something else to be a factor within that team environment and everything else that is going to propel this GiantX teams towards that upper end of competition. There's been enough signs of life within this GiantX team that I don't think anybody is going to write them off completely heading in towards this summer split, especially as you laid out with some changes coming on through. Now, is it going to be enough to shake up what is, I think, a pretty darn established top 3, top 4 within the LEC? That's, I think, going to be the real question, and it's going to take at least through the first 2-3 weeks until you get some type of clear answer about a squad like this.
Yeah, I feel like the potential is there to maybe usurp Vitality as that 4 spot. Cracking into the top 3 seems tough. Oscar in and also coming in for Lot, and I think that's a guy who's going to have a lot to prove. We've seen some highs where he's dominating Kana in the playoffs, and then we've seen some lows where he's losing to shifters in these head-to-head matchups. So I think an opportunity for him to kind of reprove himself, and I think he'll put up and surprise some people. Just after them, the other squad, other than Casey or MCoy, that did not make any moves coming into this split, that is Natis Vincir Navi, who kind of similar to Vitality. We've seen moments in the regular season where you're going, this squad looks legit and like they could make some noise. Playoffs roll around and they don't really do anything. All they've done in the first 2 splits in playoffs is 2-0 a absolutely floundering Fnatic squad. So it almost doesn't matter how the regular season goes. I need to see them win a series in playoffs to believe in them.
Yeah, I think that's the answer here about Navi is you are more than confident that they're good enough to achieve that playoff status within the LEC, where they're going to fall within that whatever type of situation. It's what you do within that playoff round, that next tier up, that next focus of preparation and skill set that comes into it. We haven't seen that from this Navi group so far in this split. It's, again, as you laid out, outside of those lame duck Fnatic type of series. So very much so, I think that's going to be where you are looking for, where you're examining this type of Navi squad and whether they are the real deal. I think that's something that isn't going to really be able to be verified or be jumped on by the fan base until we get the results in playoffs.
And like it's been so long since we've seen a lot of teams in Europe, but Navi not being part of this summer roadshow, all of a sudden it's like approaching months, not weeks, since we've seen them on the Rift, and they're not going to be there till August. So basically all of July, all of June, we did not see Navi play. So even with the same starting 5, it's like, what growth have we seen in the offseason? That's the main question to see, because there are still some young players on this roster continuing to develop.
It's going to be a weird one because it's going to more or less feel like starting a whole new brand new year type of situation at this point, because you've had that time away due to, again, as you laid out, the scheduling for where those road shows were going to be and everything else at the end of that last split. And then, of course, straight into MSI and EWC. So it has been a while. So it's going to be one of those ones where, again, maybe that is that benefit of being able to hit a harder type of reset button, more or less, and really focus in on this split. Or it's going to simply just have been too long of a time to be locked in, to be lapsed at this type of point. And we're not going to see the result that we want from them.
May 30th was the last professional game that Navi was putting on the Rift. And let me tell you, it's even further than May 30th. The last time we were seeing the bottom 4 on this LEC list, that is like the start of May, because most of them did not play week 7 in that final road show. So yeah, over 2 months, bordering on 3 for some of these squads. And truthfully, I'm not sure either of us are feeling super confident in a lot of these bottom 4, even though this is where a lot of the roster moves were happening. We'll start with, even though Fnatic is ahead of them, I'm feeling a little bit better about Team Heretics than any of these other 4, and the changes they made. Douglas started a couple of games to close out the split. He's going to be the de facto starter in the jungler over Sheo, like that. Hype coming in over Ice. I think this is a guy who has not had the opportunity he deserves. Maybe this is it. And then Nukeduck comes in as coach alongside Mithy, a little bit of a FlyQuest reunion. So tentatively positive for Heretics to maybe finish 7th.
And I like the idea of Nukeduck and Mithy behind the scenes as that coaching staff, as you laid out, bring back some of that FlyQuest type of vibes and some of the angles that they use to prepare against and counteract some teams throughout draft. I think that is something that you can look forward towards or maybe bank on. Again, is it enough when we've climbed down the ladder like this and you're already feeling as confident as you can about that top 3, and then you outline the next picture of the next kind of 1 or 2 squads right beneath them that are either looking to jump over each other, jump into that top 3, whatever, you get down to here, I'm not really seeing an avenue up for a lot of these squads. And again, and unless it is stuff like, as you said, where it is bringing in a coaching staff of Nukeduck and Mithy, and they step in with a different type of approach, different preparation and strategies as far as how they want to attack the rest of the LEC. These type of things can be that difference maker. And as you've talked about, that length of time since we have seen them, that is that blessing and a curse of, well, you could have actually really had those substantial changes to reapproach and be reloaded for this next split. I just don't really see it, and I'm not biting on any of these baits of these lower tier LEC teams.
And of course, still not super used to talking about Fnatic in that lower tier level of competition in the LEC, but that's all we've seen from the first 2 splits. And in summer, it's only top 6 are going to playoffs, so can Fnatic punch up to that? Is Saboro coming in to replace Empiros enough to fix having like 2 staff working on this whole organization? And the truth is, this might be the final split you see out of the black and orange, which would be a real travesty because I don't see them doing anything meaningful.
Be a real bummer, kind of getting those vibes as we've had this whole League of Legends Classic roll around. We're getting an event in the LCS with TSM and CLG guys going. The ghosts of the past is soon to be maybe the destination for the Fnatic organization. It really is a frustrating, kind of disappointing end in this type of situation when you do think about the history, you think about the fan base and loyalty of these guys. It's a frustrating situation, but I'll tell you what, I'm not your savior. I don't see it happening. I think
you had me for a minute.
I wished it's in my heart to have it, but I can tell you, we're removed from the LCS. So the hopium copium out of the system. This is purely on the brain and analytics, and I just can't get myself on that Fnatic train.
Laspa and Saboro live together on Genji Academy. That's a positive, maybe synergy thing that I could give you Fnatic fans. But other than that, yeah, I don't have a whole ton of faith. So much so that I feel like 7th is generous for them, because I honestly feel like even SK might hop ahead of them because Leader's no longer on the squad. Slow Q comes in, who has had pretty good success, honestly, in some of the Tier 2 regions and already played some EWC qualifiers for them and instantly looked like a breath of fresh air. I'm amazed how much fun SK Gaming was having on comms last year, considering how little they won. But I legit think this one change is enough to take SK maybe closer towards playoffs.
I can't believe I'm saying it when we're this far down in the list. This is maybe the squad that I'm most excited about heading towards this because of that change. And that's not meant to be negative or anything else like that. But I think, again, we had long been saying it and long saw enough proof of it that Leader was not the correct option for this iteration, for this experiment, trial run, whatever, for this group with SK. And it was time to make a change. And so they have. And so this is one of those ones where it's going to be the question of, well, was Leader's impact or positive effect everything off the riff? The vibes, the energy, as you said, the communication, everything seemed a lot better than where the results were indicating the squad was at the time. I think that we are going to see that bounce back from this SK squad because, again, if you looked at all the other aspects of that team of when things were, not involving Leader or the mid lane role in the game, you could find aspects where they were taking it to the rest of the LEC. So I want to see it this time around in this split where, again, that answer was so very clear from the beginning of time throughout the last two splits as well. So now to get to this one, the final summer split, and have a change here, I'm looking forward to seeing SK this one.
And with so many big name players, there's a legit fan base for SK. And listen, Wonder was incredibly reliable in the laning phase top lane. The potential from Yappa was very obvious. Picked up a couple pentakills and was so aggressive and dominant in some of these team fights. So it can't really be worse than, 2-7 for SK. Expecting them to punch up, maybe, just maybe, vie for that 6th playoff spot and make their fans a little bit happy. But should be yet another exciting split in the LEC. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.